Peter Pomerantsev, British journalist, author, and TV producer, joins me now. Hello and welcome to Spotlight Ukraine.
Hi there, how you doing?
Good, good. How are you?
Surviving. How are you, though? Tell me. What's I just got back from Truskavets 2 days ago. So I was just near Lviv. But how is it now? How's the electricity?
No, it's good so far. 2 after 2, so we got blackouts, but for like 3 or 4 hours. But now let's get back to propaganda. So the latest data from the Russian Levada Center showed that more than 74% of respondents support military aggression against Ukraine. Does this number indicate the effectiveness of Russian propaganda machine?
Well, sort of, in the sense of how do we think that a propaganda machine like that works? I mean, look, Levada Center is you know, for many reasons a respected organization, but not one who can avoid the difficulties of working in a dictatorship. So most of their interviews are by telephone now, which kind of indicates that people will be listened to. Often when you ask people directly about a subject like the war, they'll be reluctant to say what they really think. So I think from a methodological point of view, it can be hard to take the results of a poll like this very seriously.
Can you assume that the numbers, the real numbers, are less, not so big?
Well, I mean, again, if we're talking about methodology, that's one aspect. I mean, I personally don't believe that you know, you can even talk of public opinion in Russia, because it's a culture where public opinion doesn't really matter. People just go along with whatever the Kremlin wants. It's an authoritarian culture. It's not a democratic culture. So I'm not sure that we can think of public opinion in it like we would in a democracy. So you know, we can go much deeper and more philosophically. What does any of this mean in Russia? You know, today the Kremlin says it wants war. People say we want war. Tomorrow the Kremlin says we want peace. People say we want peace. I mean, this is not a culture that creates individuals with strong personal opinions who stand up for themselves. It's a culture of mass agreement where people just go along. So in that sense, really, any kind of public opinion polling in a dictatorship is just not very interesting in a way.
I see.
What's interesting is looking at many other factors, many other indicators. I mean, there's no protests against the war. There's no protests against the war outside of Russia by Russians in exile. So this is a culture which shows that it goes along with what the Kremlin wants, and maybe some of them take pleasure in what the Kremlin is doing, and others just agree that whatever the Kremlin does is the right thing to do.
In Russian society, they usually say that everyone has their own reality, thereby denying what Western journalists cover. How dangerous is that they're just reluctant to listen to and to accept the information made by the Western journalism?
So it's very interesting. I did some polling in Russia quite recently, and we were trying to see, was one of the questions we asked, to what extent do you think is truth objective, or does everybody have their own reality? And the closer people were to supporting the Kremlin and to watching state media, the more likely they were to think that truth is subjective and that objective facts don't exist. And the less they watched state media and the further away they were from identifying with the Kremlin, the more they thought objective truth does exist. So one of the main lines of the Kremlin's propaganda has been to say that truth is not objective, that it's completely subjective, that you know, people might say there are war crimes in Bucha, but that's just one opinion. And you never really know what's going on, is sort of the line, and to spread confusion that way. So it was very interesting to see that borne out in sociology, that, yeah, So again, something like that I think is much more interesting to research than support for or against the war through opinion polling. By the way, I mean, there's been other opinion polling in Russia recently indicating that people want peace more than anything else. But peace is undefined. Peace could mean, peace and the complete capitulation of Ukraine, peace and, the resignation of Putin. We don't know. They just want peace, whatever that means. So, these opinion polls are really very hard to interpret.
It's really interesting. But now let's switch our attention to the TV channel Dost. As you know, Lithuania and Latvia recently revoked the license of the TV channel Dost. Is this a timely decision to do?
I'm not an expert on the Latvian regulator. This is not really a case of subjective decisions. I mean, Latvia has, I don't know the Latvian process, but it's a country in the EU. It'll have a media regulator with certain statutes and laws. And if, this is the case in anywhere in Europe, if a person or a company feels that that has been abused, they can appeal usually to Strasbourg. So look, we're talking about, this is not like a political decision purely made by one guy who says, get rid of them or something. This will be a process. And if that process is unfair, then you can appeal against that process. I mean, that's how things work in democracies. I remember Latvia banned Russia Today, I think, or Первый канал, around 2015, for a couple of weeks for war propaganda. That was appealed. And I think several EU bodies said, no, this is within Latvian law. So look, this is not, this is not like, some guy goes, get rid of them. There is a process. And if that process was faulty in some way, then they can appeal. So I don't quite, is it the right decision? Well, it depends on Latvian law. I mean, maybe Latvia doesn't have very good media laws. I don't know enough about Latvia. I know the British ones very well. I don't know the Latvian ones very well.
Let's just wait. This is how democracy works. And now let's talk a bit about the propagandists. So will Russian propagandists ever stand trial, in your opinion?
So will they stand trial is one question, and the second one, what for? So what I'm working on, and others are as well, is how we can bring Russian propagandists to trial, as in for what crimes. So usually propagandists escape, usually they get away with it. Usually they say these were just words, or they say we had no power. We were being told what to do. So if you want to find them guilty of facilitating, of aiding and abetting war crimes, which I believe they are, you have to show that Russian propagandists are not just saying nasty things. We all know they say nasty things. That's not illegal. What you have to show is that they know that they are part of helping war crimes, crimes against humanity, and the crime of aggression, and maybe genocide. So what you'd have to do, I think, is start with the war crime and work backwards. And what is the role of propaganda in it? And by propaganda, it's not just these nasty people on TV. It's the troll farms. It's the search engine optimization. It's the systemic use of information campaigns to help facilitate war crimes. So, easy example. 5 minutes before Russia bombs Kramatorsk, all these Russian telegram channels and Russian spokespeople start saying, the Ukrainians are about to bomb themselves. And then Russia attacks. Yeah. There's something that Russia did in Syria. Yeah. That is an example of information being used clearly in coordination with a military operation in order to make a war crime possible. So you would have to show that they know about this, that they understand this, and that they're willing members of this. I mean, I think they are, but that's what you'd have to prove. So can we prove that? I think we can today. I think you'd have to use lots of ways to prove that. You can use digital analysis. You can see how the Telegram channels start saying the same thing at the same time. Yep. That would show it's coordinated. And the spokespeople are saying the same things. You would want whistleblowers from the system to say, look, we all know that this is a system. We all know that we're helping facilitate the bombing of the maternity hospital in Mariupol. We know this, and that's what we're doing. So it's never easy, but I think we have a better chance than before. But remember, usually propagandists escape. After Nazi Germany, which was full of propagandists at every level, only one was found guilty. Only one. Julius Streicher, the really, really crazy one, who was very anti-Semitic, published the most anti-Semitic magazine. All the others, the guys on the radio saying all Jews should be murdered, all of them found innocent or not guilty. They were found not guilty. So it's very, very hard to get the propagandists, but I think we can.
Thank you so much once again. And one of the aims of our program is just to deliver the truth to the whole world and debunking the myths and fakes of Russian propaganda machine. Thank you once again.
Sure.
Peter Pomerantsev, British journalist, author and TV producer, was one of the guests of Spotlight Ukraine. Like, share, subscribe, and we continue. Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Latest news, trends, and analytics on all about Ukraine. Like, share, and subscribe. Any questions, proposals, and comments, contact us via email.